some of the people running these teams, I have a hard time believing that they could get a job.
How would you describe Roger Goodell?
Roger's a tough guy. ESPN has been compromised for years. Our competition is not the NBA. Our competition is Google and Apple. There's a lot you could say about Jerry that probably isn't great for a family show.
This is not a family show. Welcome to Boardroom Talks, where we're here with the longtime former NFLPA Executive Director, D. Smith. D, welcome.
I am just great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You were at the NFLPA as Executive Director for 14 years. What have you been up to since then?
As far as work-wise, I still teach. Other than that, I've been on a great sort of mini tour of the country promoting turf wars.
What made you want to write a book?
I came into sports as kind of an outsider. So I thought that perspective was a perspective that needed to be told. But second, there are very few books written from the perspective of a union leader. And I think that just like the opening line of the book, until the lion learns to write, every story is about the hunter. And pulling back the curtain, I think, is a necessary way of enjoying this game and understanding this game that embraces the humanity of it. And by the way, I think that's what makes sports great. I think that if we are able to remove ourselves from the humanity of it, and we don't take on issues of race and power and class, I think all of that separates sport from the humanity of it.
How would you describe Roger Goodell?
Roger's a tough guy. Personally, there's a side of Roger that's affable, that's fun to be around. But there is that side of him that is difficult. There's that side of him that can at times be a little petulant.
You described him as cold and dark in your book.
He can be extremely empty. It is hard to find something to appeal to in that scenario, whether, fairness, balance, humanity, the right thing to do. And Roger can certainly be that way. I think at the same time, Roger is brilliant. The way in which the National Football League has wrung the majority of media dollars out of the sports media ecosystem is phenomenal. The league doesn't think about how much money they're going to make off the TV media deals every year. That's not the way they think. The way the National Football League thinks about media deals is how much money this entire system is going to spend on media in all of sport. And they want most of it. They think of it as, first of all, I know you're going to lose money on football because every media company loses money on football. Everyone. And the way they think of it is, look, I already know you're going to lose money. And I also know that if you don't have football as a staple of your network, you're not going to be a network for long. All we're trying to figure out is how much money you're going to spend in this sports media system. And we want most of it.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't mind that because the players get 50% of it.
You've dealt with a lot of interesting players, tough personalities. Who are a few the star players that kind of stand out in the uniqueness of the way you had to deal with them?
Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning, they did something that they didn't have to do. They had to be the lead plaintiffs in 2011. I know that the owners are sitting there thinking there were failed strikes in the 80s, failed strikes in the 90s. We're going to break the players in the way that we've always broken the players. The fact that Joe Montana was the star player that crossed the picket line, I made that a point to tell every player about that Joe Montana was a scab. So this idea that star players were the people helping their other players, for the most part, wasn't true in the National Football League. I will always respect those three guys. They stood up for their fellow players at a time when we needed it the most.
The percentage of minority head coaches and executives in the NFL remains disproportionately low.
Abysmally low.
How do you fix that?
You would have to be the commissioner of the National Football League who, through working with the owners, appealed to them in a way where you made them give up control. The way the league is run, however, is the commissioner is simply the lead representative for the owners. That the job of the commissioner is far more about control than money. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the issue of black executives and black head coaches, it is simply because they don't want those people. They want the ability to control 100% who runs their teams and who are the chief executives of their team. They just want that control. When you come from the outside world into the business of football, and you've worked for the companies that I've worked for, between my two firms, the top 50 companies in the world, you become very comfortable with the way that they are run. You literally hire the smartest and best business people because there's such a competition for them, right?
Yes.
That's not the National Football League. The National Football League teams are run far more like a barbecue stand than Google. Look at those teams and count up the number of family members who are in those teams, running those teams. So they would rather take care of their family members than hiring the best and the brightest. Some of the people who are running these teams, I have a hard time believing that they could get a job in a top 1,000 company.
Who are some of these people that you dealt with that you think may not be the people who lead those Fortune 500 companies that you were discussing?
I think that if you would look at the management team at the Bengals, I challenge you to prove to me that any one of those people would be the chief operating officer of any top 50 company in America. But then you flip it around. Is the National Football League, it's not company, but is the National Football League a top 50 company in the country? Yes. He said, our competition is not the NBA.
No.
Our competition is Google and Apple. And I think he's right. Not going to be getting any gifts in Cincinnati.
No.
I will say one of the best gifts that I ever got as the executive director is Mike Brown did give me a complete VHS set of Hard Knocks for the Bengals once. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Just give me your home address. I'll make sure that makes its way to you.
I will not be
giving me your
not for that reason. That's for sure. You helped found One Team Partners, which leverages the player's IP in a way that they
Didn't
probably
exist.
had not
Yep.
conceived of before.
Yep.
Why is that such an important tool for the players?
To give you an example, remember the league can make the front of the jersey because it's got the seal. If you want to make a jersey with the name on the back, you have to come to the NFL Players Incorporated because they have the group licensing rights for any players 7 or more. The tough part in that system is a company like Reebok or Nike will do a deal with the league for the front of the jersey. And after they do a deal with the league for the front of the jersey, they would come to the players and offer a much smaller amount than they're paying the league for the rights to the back of the jersey. You would say to yourself, well, wait a minute. I think the names on the back of these jerseys are driving the price of the jersey and therefore the market price or the value of the deal. And somebody like Reebok or Nike would just simply turn to you and say, that's the deal on the table. You can't go anywhere else because the league has already done a deal for the front of the jersey. So you've got literally 2 choices. Either sign the deal that you don't like or go a year without names on the back of the jerseys, which causes a whole host of new problems. You come away having to do a deal that you believe is less than the true market value. So the importance of One Team really came out of this idea that, well, wait a minute. If we only have the opportunity to do a deal with one person in the market for either apparel, trading cards, or video games, 2 things are happening. We're not getting nearly the value for the deal that we should be, but worse than that, the overall value for our rights is suppressed. So we created One Team really for 2 reasons. One, just to be blunt, we're going to pool all of the IP rights of all of the unions, which gives us bargaining leverage. All of those using bargaining leverage in the market in a way that we never had to do, we just never had before. Let's play this out into a worst case scenario. Company A comes to you and they say, we want the players' rights for their IP, and we're going to offer you a deal that is not a deal that you would want to take, something that was below what we think it's worth. The worst case scenario for one team would be, we don't like that deal. And if we have to go 1 year without company A having the players' rights, that's fine, because we have enough money inside of one team, thanks to our partnership with another venture capital company, we have enough money to pay the players, and we'll wait you out. That ability to impact the market transformed everybody's value on their rights deals by 2, 3, 4, 5x. So after you go through a lockout where the owners cut off the health insurance for pregnant women, if you think about this job the right way, you should go to bed terrified every night. I wanted to make sure that the NFL players were never at the mercy of the owners again.
Yeah.
And this is what One Team Partners gives you. We started that company. It had a valuation of, I think, $350 million or so. Right now, the valuation is in excess of $1 billion. The NFL players themselves have an ownership interest in a company that should be worth $2 to $3 billion by 2030. They can go into the market here or anywhere else, and they can either take out a loan vehicle or some other financing vehicle that will cover NFL players during a lockout and a strike in a way that players have never been able to achieve in the history of sports unions.
What do you think the risks are of a lockout in the coming years?
Hi. I think the media landscape is changing. I think that there are a certain number of owners who believe that the players got too rich of a deal in 2020, especially because it was based on pre-COVID economics. I put the risk of a lockout for players in 2030 if they don't get a deal done at pretty high. I also don't think that these owners, especially with the entry of private equity into the business, things like tail-end liability on pensions, nobody in private equity wants that. And I think they're going to make a push to take pensions and things like post-career healthcare away from players. I think the biggest risk of private equity coming into the NFL is any group of workers in that ecosystem who do not have a union. Coaches, man, they're in for a rude awakening, because I think you're going to see a certain flat leveling of coaches' salaries and benefits. And the same thing for anybody else who's working on at a team.
The NFL agreed to take a 10% stake in ESPN. What are your thoughts on that?
For the guy who ended up, sending out, dozens of auditors every year to audit revenue, because you want to make sure that we're getting our fair share of revenue, and looking at television contracts and trying to predict their future trajectory, the investment in ESPN makes that exponentially more difficult, I think, for hopefully somebody at the NFLPA who's looking at the future trends of dollars, and also trying to understand whether and to what extent this investment in ESPN lowers the overall media rights deal amount.
Because then you get a sweetheart deal with ESPN.
Yes.
Do you think it compromises the way that ESPN covers the league?
I think to a certain extent, ESPN has been compromised for years. As an investigative journalist, if you're going to work at a company where the thing that you are going to cover, or you should cover, has a financial interest in your company, do you come to work every day wondering whether you have the same green light? Of course you do.
Legalized sports betting happened towards the end of your tenure, making a huge impact on the sport.
Not great.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I don't deal with it anymore, because I try not to think about that in my backswing. But what kept me awake at night is this concept of non-public material information that is in the ether and in the everyday activities of the National Football League. And you and I know, because we haven't spent the majority of our lives in this sort of goofy sports paradigm. The idea of material non-public information is that nuclear fusion material of existential lava that everybody stays away from in the business world. Because that's the end of your career.
That's insider trading.
You lose your law license, you go to jail.
Yeah.
And so what's happened in sort of business and law and other, highly regulated industries is, man, you stay so far away from material non-public information. And that information is regulated and kept, in a tight ball, with literally eyes only. The concept of material non-public information doesn't exist in the NFL. Many of those team rooms will have the first 10, 15 plays scripted on a board. Why? Because they want all the players to know it, understand it. That's material non-public information.
Yep.
Who in these organizations are making sure that other executives in this business don't have that information?
Or maybe it's a janitor or someone who's, sweeping that floor and has access to that whiteboard.
I'll give you a real world example. Or maybe it's the kid of a general manager who got access to his dad's phone and prank called someone, right?
Sure.
And the idea that you need to have someone who is the head of compliance at these teams and someone who's the head of compliance at the league, where the control is not, dissipated around to the 32 teams, but that compliance and control of that information is done in a way that it is centrally located and then overseen by somebody who cares about it. Someone asked me the other day, is there a silver bullet that can jeopardize the unparalleled success of the National Football League? Yes. That silver bullet is if someone believes that it's not any given Sunday, that this thing is truly rigged, and that someone is either making money off of prop bets or outcomes in a way that jeopardizes the integrity of the game.
How would you define the future of the NFL and the way the game is going to change over the next few years?
Well, hopefully, if you have a strong union and you have a strong National Football League, it's undeniable. It's a beautiful game, played by fantastic athletes. I think the trajectory for the National Football League is limitless.
Well, this has been Boardroom Talks with the great D. Smith.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's awesome.
And your insight.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was like the best freaking interview I've ever had.
Wow.